What are the Chicago Bears plans going forward as the NFL 2025 Combine concludes in Indianapolis? We'll give you our stocks up and stocks down coming up. In basketball, the Chicago Bulls lose another heartbreaker to the Indiana Pacers while losing Ayo Dosunmu to a left shoulder injury for the rest of the season. In baseball, Davis Martin threw a gem for the Sox, but they come up short against the Dodgers. Go figure. And Matt Shaw, the third baseman prospect, made his debut for the Men in Blue, i.e. the Chicago Cubs. That are a tribute to neo soul artist, the late great Angie Stone, in our old school Monday tradition returns. That and a whole lot more in Second City Sports. The Monday edition starts right now. Welcome to the Monday edition of Second City Sports. We're live in the living color and locked and loaded right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Miss Lakina McGee, which is she. I am Cindy Brown, and you know that this is me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow my Kina McGee on the Twitter, executors again, IG.
Be sure to download the Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Please subscribe to our podcast. We are located at War Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We are on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. Excuse me. While you're at it, please give War Media a follow at WARR Media on all social media platforms. So on Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We're unapologetically fun, and we have very different opinions. This is live, folks, and this is a Monday. Please forgive me. So if you oh boy. Yeah, we are unapologetically fun. We definitely have opinions, and that one will never change. So if you have any questions or comments for us, you can definitely hit us up on our Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comments section. Lakina will get the up on the screen for you. But if you decide to troll and or do something silly, dumb, or stupid, I've been giving Lakina full powers to give you fools to bill and be a boot.
Toodles.
But before we begin, we must shout out to the replay gang that is checking us out right now on the replay. And to those of you that are watching us live on our YouTube and Facebook pages, don't forget our motto. Never ever forget where we talk about music, sports, or not politics. No. Where we talk about music, lifestyle, and entertainment. Always, never forget, we always will provide.
We'll provide you with some of the best around Second City Sports, of course. As like Sid said, we'll be paying tribute to one of the all-time greats in the neo soul R&B. We're back to old school TV Monday. You wanted to make a guess on which show we're doing this week. Of course, Seth Jones is traded with the NCAA tournament to start in a couple weeks. Illinois gets a big win, and so does Bradley as well to prove their seeding for this week's Missouri Valley Conference tournament. It was a mixed weekend for the Bulls as usual, and the Lakers, now the favorites to win the title. Well, but first, Sid, with the NFL Combine has wrapped up down in Indy, and there were definitely a couple standouts. If you know, look, Josh Simmons, of course, Will Campbell, the tackle from tackle from LSU, among other guys that stood out throughout the weekend at the Combine. Jahdae Barron and Nick Amawari, and so many others. So it's interesting to see that what the Bears are kind of like where they're at right now. Of course, you want to go O tackle or D tackle or get an edge rusher. There's more than you saw a lot of those guys there throughout the weekend in Indy. So who impressed you, Sid?
I was going to say Will Campbell, the offensive tackle from LSU. I know he fell short on some shortcomings, whatever that means, according to NFL scouts, but I thought he ran well. I got a chance to check out a little bit of it yesterday, but of course I was watching college basketball at the same time, so I couldn't fully concentrate. But from what I saw, I thought that Will Campbell looked nice, and also too the Texas offensive lineman Kelvin Banks Jr. I know in most
Mhm.
mock drafts, people have him being selected by the Bears at number 9. We'll see if that happens in less than a couple of months. But also too, Greg Zabel out of North Dakota State University. He's 6'6", weighs 312 pounds, and his vertical jump is at 36.6. I think that's an offensive lineman that the Bears should consider. I don't know if you consider him with that number 10 selection, but don't forget the Bears also have 2 second round selections, so maybe you could use one of those picks on him.
Yeah, I think that was the one of the things that the guys that stood out for me. And do look, they'll have their choice here. Do you go tackle? Do you go edge rusher? Because they got like 3 picks in that top 50. So now, unless Ryan Poles pulls off something out of his tuchus and decides to trade one of those second round picks for somebody I guess like that's out there in the market right now, it'll be interesting to see what he does with that. Now I'm interested to kind of like well, look, we've known that. Look, we know Darnell Wright's been okay, for the Bears, and I think for me, I'm still a little bit worried about trusting polls. Now, it'll be interesting to look at how Ben Johnson sees some of this stuff too, because this could be his first time, like really, like getting into the meat and potatoes of finding and scouting players. So it'll be interesting to kind of see like where these guys are going to fall at, especially once the draft starts in a couple of months and up in Green Bay.
Well, pressure is on Ryan Post, as you mentioned, because he's going into the last year of his contract. Even though Ben Johnson is your new head coach, Ben Johnson has some leeway here with this 2025 year coming up and perhaps following next year as well. But for Ryan Post, this team needs to win right away, and it all starts with him with free agency coming up, I believe, next week where the new league year begins. So he has to hit on almost every move that he makes. And we talked about this before too. It's all about the development, the redevelopment of Caleb Williams with this new coaching staff. So what Ryan Post has to keep in mind is that you're not only building for the future, but you build it for right now, and you build him on the back of Caleb Williams. So assuming that he's going to be successful, is in when you win football games in this league. We said it during the Super Bowl. We've been saying it all year long, and I don't care what era that you're talking about in football. It all starts with the trenches, both offensive and the defensive lines. It's something that Brian Post hasn't gotten right since he's been here. And I get your your sentiments, Lakina, about not trusting him. I'm on the fence as well. But starting next week with the free agency period open up, he has to get these moves right. And you cannot play around with this. It's not just about the future; it's about right now.
You listen to Second City Sports on Sports on Chicago. Keen McGee, Cindy Brown with you. Talking some NFL here on Second City Sports. Up until the bottom of the hour here, and what's interesting to me about this whole thing is, and we'll get into some of the other NFL news because there was a couple of big moves over the weekend. I think for me, I think the combine. Look. We saw Xavier Worthy. We did. He had like one of the fastest, in combine history. Of course, Isaiah Bond is a former teammate at Texas. I think he is like there was definitely not an overlap there, but he just missed breaking his record. So he'll interesting to see who he goes with and and stuff. So yeah, I think the combine is sort of one of those things where it's good for television. It's a nice time filler for for people that we know that cover the Bears. Though some of them are just now coming back, but it's kind of like one of those things where you're just like, okay, look, I know Will Howard did not have his, of course, the quarterback from the reigning champs, the Ohio State Buckeyes, but he didn't have his best, time and stuff, so he could probably may not be a high selection, but yeah, it's sort of one of those things where you just really don't know who you're going to get with it when it comes to the combine.
I get the combine is a lot to talk about because football season is over with and all the scouts from all 32 teams are out there. But how many years we've been talking about this? Uh, Some of those evaluations are, I'm not going to say too strict, but they're overrated. Remember Teddy Bridgewater? I know he just
Mm-hmm.
finished up his year as a third string backup to the as a QB for the Detroit Lions. But remember, he slid down in the draft because of his work. I don't think he participated in the combine, but because of his individual workout, he slid down a little bit further. And many people want to base everything at the combine. I get it. It's a job interview for your middle of the road type players. Every year the top your first rounders, they don't participate in that in the activity part of the process. They participate in the interview part of the process because they know that on their own pro days, they get to control it, and they get to put their own stamp on their performance on their own pro day. But the combine is about the middle of the road guys trying to get into the league, your second rounders, your projected second rounders, late first rounders, second rounders, and so on and so forth to put their best foot forward on tape and make an impression on these scouts. And you're a scout, you got to be on point with what you see, what you don't see, and not just put your personal feelings into your evaluations, but be on point and be fair in your assessment.
All right, let's talk about the rest of the NFL news before we go to break. A huge deal came across the pipes Saturday night as former All Pro wide receiver Deebo Samuel is now Washington Commander. He was sent there in exchange for a fifth round pick, and of course, Samuel was due will get paid. Washington will take the remainder of his contract in full, which is about just over 17.5 million dollars for this upcoming season. So of course, then it turns out that Jonathan Allen, their D tackle, was supposed to be a part of that trade. But unfortunately, I guess he was due about 16.4, so that was not included. So that's how he kind of wasn't a part of that trade. But this is a good move for the Commanders. I mean, look, Jaden Dales, you can always use more targets. He only got a it's interesting that Washington only got a fifth rounder, but unfortunately, Deebo has had injury issues the last couple of years. That's probably why. So yeah. So what do you think of the trade?
I think it's a good move for the Commanders because, as you mentioned, we talked about this last year. Jenny Daniels only had veteran tight end Zach Ertz as a target, along with Terry McLaurin, who's I think this decade's version of Keenan Allen. He gets no respect, but he's very productive every year. So if Deebo Samuel can stay healthy for the Commanders, then it makes their offense that much more dangerous. And let's not forget too, there's some wear and tear on those tires for Deebo Samuel because you mentioned all the injuries and the San Francisco 49ers for a while until, especially not last year, but the year before, they used him as a running back in many of those offensive plays. So, and that's why they got such a low value for him. But I think this is a good move for the Commanders. You could try him out for 1 year. If he stays healthy for the majority of the year and is very productive, you could sign him to a team-friendly deal. If not, you just let it go. So I think this is a very good move for Washington. And Jalen Daniels, like you said, does get another valuable target.
And the reigning Super Bowl champ Eagles, they make a big move. They cut veteran six-time Pro Bowler corner Darius Slay. This is more for money. This is more again for money purposes. He was due about just under $6.5 million. So they decided not to pay him that money, and he still wants to play one more year. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes.
Yeah, I can see him playing for a veteran team like the Rams or 49ers or another team that's on the cusp of winning a championship, being that perennial playoff team. So I don't think it'll be too long before he finds a job. I think also, too, keep in mind, Philadelphia has a free agent defensive end named Josh Sweat. And by cutting Darius Slay, it does save the money, but could that money go back into re-signing Mr. Josh Sweat? We'll soon find out next week.
Going to be interesting too, especially with that little bump in the salary cap. So that might be one of the reasons
Hmm.
why that maybe they made this move so they can keep both Mikael Williams and Josh Sweat. I know Bears fans have been wanting to get Sweat on Sweat for that D line, but it looks like Philadelphia might have something to say about that. So yeah, so you might be right about that. This might be that money might go to Mr. Sweat too once they can be able to do negotiations and such.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens with that. Also, too, let's not forget about Philadelphia. Will they be the favorite in the NFC next year? They will, but we talked about on our last show about some of the other moves that other teams in the NFC are trying to make, in particular the Los Angeles Rams, because we talked about the whole Matthew Stafford situation. It was a result that he's going back to the Rams. But if they try to make the move to get a receiver like a Tyreek Hill or somebody like that, I think they'll be the contenders next to Philadelphia coming out of the NFC for next year. Washington's in the middle of that pack too, but if the Rams could get a guy like a Tyreek Hill, a star wide receiver to go with Matthew Stafford, I think they're in the driver's seat now with them not moving on from Cooper Cup.
Good. Be interesting to see what happens there. Now we'll take a really quick break. We'll go to the hardwood as the NBA. Are the Lakers now the favorites in the West? And also, of course, Boston with the kind of a mixed bag for them, as well as with the Bulls. Well, I'm not putting them, that's a different category for different reasons, but good, interesting weekend in NBA nonetheless. So the key to McGee City Brown, Second City Sports, on Sports of Chicago. We go to the NBA coming up right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I need for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils, too.
These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver. I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you, your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Welcome back to Second City Sports, the Monday edition, locked and loaded and live in living color, right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid. That's Lakina. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, in the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow my Keenan McGee on the Twitter, X, again, IG.
As we dive into some Bulls and NBA discussion, if you have any questions or comments for us during this segment about pro basketball and more, you can definitely hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. Lakina will get up on the screen for you.
Off to the NBA we go, as the Bulls had a mixed bag over the weekend. They beat the Raptors. It was kind of back and forth for a little bit, but the Bulls pulled away from the Raptors in overtime. Kobe White had 24 there in that matchup on Friday. Now, yesterday, If you took the over on this one, you had a nice capper to your weekend as the Bulls lose to Indiana 127-112. Kobe White also had 26 points, again leading the Bulls there. Now the Bulls have been shorthanded. Vooch, this is the fourth straight game that he's missed. Due to injuries and some bad news for the Bulls. Ayo DeSumo, he's been playing with a bad shoulder these last month. And unfortunately, it's there's some ligament damage there, so now he's done for the year. So tough break for him as in that sense. But could it be that maybe we're in for the tank, as our buddy Caitlin Sharkey said yesterday on WGN Sports on their game night show with her and our other buddy Chris Boughton? Who do you think?
You would think, but the other two teams behind them, you could say maybe the Atlanta Hawks throw them in there as well. Those other teams in front of them or behind them for the 10th spot in the play-in tournament, they're trying to tank too. So you're in a rock and a hard place where you're a middle-of-the-road franchise like the Chicago Bulls are. As we said before, we'll say it again, pick a lane and stick to it. Now, we'll see what happens at the end of the season, but for right now, I think the Bulls have barely enough talent just to be competitive, and unless they go on a historic losing streak, which is very possible, but probably unlikely. They're going to remain in that 10th spot. They've been stuck in that same damn 10th spot since January 1. So, Happy New Year, folks. We're going into the third month of your Chicago Bulls being in the 10th spot. So, go figure with that one. But we talked about this on our last show. A couple players I'm looking forward to watching. And now with Ayo DeSumo's season officially being over. Josh Giddey, I thought he had a mixed bag yesterday, 60.7 assists, but he was 5 for 15 overall shooting, including 0 for 4 for downtown. I said he was starting to come on, but offensively, shooting-wise, he took a step back yesterday. You mentioned Kobe White. It's been a terrible year for him in terms of being injured, but he was the only player with the 20-piece yesterday with 26 points. But you take a look at Zach Collins, a veteran. I know he's on the last year of that current deal that he's in, but he's come in and he has been very productive for Chicago. But I'm looking for Josh Giddey, Dalen Terry, and my guy Jalen Smith, who had a good game yesterday. I'm looking forward to Billy Donovan giving him some more minutes now since the injuries have piled up too. Let's not forget about Julian Phillips as well. So I'm looking at Julian Phillips, Dalen Terry, and Josh Giddey to all improve their games with Ayo DeSumo being out.
Well,
and Matas Buzelis,
the good news is
he's been very impressive in my book.
Yeah, well, he was going to get a little. Well, your little tanking thing might be a little bit easier as the Bulls will have to play Cleveland tomorrow at the UC. So, you know what? Maybe, and of course they go to Florida. The Bulls do. They face Orlando and Miami. So it'll be interesting to see where the Bulls will be at that point. But could be interesting this week for them. Speaking of the rest of the NBA, the Lakers win the latest battle of Los Angeles as they beat the Clippers 108-102. These are yesterday's games, folks. Luka at 29 for the Lakers, and it's kind of like they're now the number 2 seed. I don't think anybody had that coming. They're only behind the OKC for the number 1 seed there. Now, are they now the favorites in the West?
No, only because we talked about this too on our last show. You need your role players to step up on a consistent basis, like Austin Reeves and Rui Hachimura. I know those two guys have been on the tear lately, but can they keep it up for the rest of the season? And can they deliver when they need it most in the playoffs? That's going to be the ultimate question. When you're going to get with Luka Doncic, we're going to get with LeBron James, barring injuries, of course. Those two are going to be there in the clutch. But if one or both of those guys have off nights, who's going to be the third guy to step up? That's been the big question all year, and it's going to continue to be a big question until we see on a consistent basis come playoff time.
Yeah, Dog had 19 off the bench for the Lakers. Now, the Clippers have kind of been in a little bit of free fall. Norman Powell only, Kawhi had 33, but Norman Powell only scored 4 points. I know he's been back from injury. I know he hasn't played in the last couple of weeks. But if you're the Clippers, should you be a little concerned right now?
Yeah, especially they're giving Kawhi free reins to play a little bit more minutes now since he's been injured throughout the season. And you mentioned Norman Powell, who should have been an all-star this year, who was carrying the weight along with James Harden. Yeah, things are not clicking right now due to injuries. Give Tyronn Lue credit, the head coach of the Clippers credit, but yeah, they're just going through a tough stretch right now. But if they continue to fall back any further, you're going to have a battle of your hands with the Warriors in that play-in tournament. But and as I said before, and I'll say it again, you don't want to. If the Warriors end up in that seventh, eighth spot in that play-in tournament, you definitely do not want to play them.
You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Chicago. Keenan McGee, Steve Brown with you as we talk some NBA. Continuing with yesterday's games, Minnesota, of course, they beat the Suns. Anthony Edwards had 44 points after missing Friday's game due to suspension, but he comes back with a vengeance there. The Pelicans beat Utah. And OKC now against San Antonio. Now, if you took the over in this game, like I said, you had a nice little capper to finish off your weekend. 146-132. The Thunder are pulling out. It was basically all Shea Gilgeous-Alexander and Jalen Williams. Williams had 41 and SGA had 31. Cason Wallace had 19. That was basically it for them as among the starters. So it'll be just to see look, the Thunder probably will end up getting that number one seed unless Lakers have something to say about that. But the Thunder, they kind of have to have everybody to kind of like get it all going here if they want to get back into the finals.
And plus, they got into a little bit of a skirmish there between those two teams yesterday too. So we're entering into the last month and a half of the regular season. Things are starting to get testy, and Oklahoma City's toughness will be coming into questions. You mentioned this team has to hit on all cylinders, and they need a guy like Chet Holmgren, who's been injured for the majority of the year, to come back and give him what he has. But it's all about Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, and the way that he goes, Oklahoma City goes. And let's not forget they have a veteran named Alex Caruso. We saw him in Chicago, folks, so we know what he could do. So veterans like that can balance out that young roster, that's going to be important too come playoff time.
Yes, it will. Now, again, back to yesterday's games. Toronto edged out the Magic. The Knicks were down 19, but they come back and beat the Heat. No, not literally, but figuratively. 120, 116, 112. Jalen Brunson led the way there to that comeback, 31 points. But Mitch Robinson, I know he's starting to kind of find his groove a little bit. I still don't trust this Knicks squad. I know Cat still is not out there. But health is going to be a big issue for the Knicks, down the line, especially as we get closer to the end of the season.
Yeah, their 5 starters are in the top 8, top 10 in the NBA as far as minutes played. And head coach Tom Thibodeau, we saw what happened here in Chicago. He did the same thing. Now the same thing is recurring with the New York Knicks. And if you're up at management, you're very concerned about this because look at the teams that are ahead of you, Cleveland and Boston, and their guys are not ran into they don't run their guys into the ground. So it's a total concern. And we saw what happened last year with their key guys going down. So if the same scenario occurs again this year, and unlike last year where they got the first round against a team that was worse than them in terms of injury-wise in Philadelphia, things could be uglier than what they were a year ago. Because if you're a Knicks fan, especially after you made that trade for Karl-Anthony Towns, you announced to your fans that we're taking a step up to compete against the Clevelands and the Bostons to compete for an NBA title. Now the same scenario happens again because the injury is something that to an extent you can't control. There's going to be a problem.
Before you say that, hold that thought about Cleveland and Boston. Cleveland did beat Portland. They needed overtime to do it though. 133-129. DeAndre Hunter had 32 points. His highest, high since joining the Cavs. Boston beat Denver 110-103. Jaylen Brown had 22 points. I know Murray had 26. I know Jokic, they struggled a little bit in that game. But it's interesting that Boston was able to have some energy for this game. If you remember what happened on Friday, we'll get to that Friday meeting in a second here. But going into Saturday's games, you got Milwaukee over Dallas. Giannis had 29 there. Quentin Grimes had a career high 44 as the Sixers beat Golden State. A little bit of a mild upset. Steph had 29, but I know Jimmy's been in and out of the lineup, and not having him there, I know that's what kind of doomed the Warriors in that game.
Yeah, that was the bottom line. Jimmy Butler missed his first game as a Golden State Warrior, and Philadelphia was able to take advantage of it. The Warriors are 7-2 in their last 9 games, and Jimmy Butler has definitely changed the temperature of that team and of their locker room. We'll see if he can keep it on. I know he's supposed to play again tonight when they resume their schedule and they're on their East Coast road trip. So, Jimmy Butler, as we talked about, he's going to be a huge addition for the Warriors team. Now, is that a championship team? I'm not sure, but that could be a dangerous team if they get into the playoffs and find the right matchup in the first round.
San Antonio edged out Memphis. The Kings beat Houston. DeRozan had 21, but they did lose Matevus Sabonis for a hamstring injury. It was like he's going to be gone for a while, so that's a big loss for the Kings. And they tried to make that push to get into that top, well, at the very least, in the play-in.
Yeah, we saw what he did a couple years ago against the Warriors in that 7-game series in the playoffs before bowing out to them in the 7th game at home. He's a very good shooter. He's a very good scorer. He's a very good defender. He's a versatile big man that you need in today's game. Now, with him being now, everything's going to be on the shoulders of Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan. And we saw that same act here in Chicago. I don't know if it's going to go all over well now with them without De'Aaron Fox now being in San Antonio via that trade at the deadline. The dynamics is going to change for that Sacramento Kings team. And Doug Christie, though he had a challenge on his hands, he's really going to have one now with Domantas Sabonis out of the lineup.
That's going to be, that's really going to be the big thing there. With him not being there to be like having that rim protector and in the interior, not having him there, that's going to be a big loss for the Kings. Detroit, no trouble with Brooklyn. Washington beat Charlotte 113-100. Now going into Friday's matchups, the Lakers beat the Clippers. No, I'm not repeating myself. They did play twice over the weekend, and I'm not repeating myself. Utah edged out Minnesota. Of course, they did not have Anthony Edwards in the lineup, but they hung on there with Utah, but they had to pull it off there. Phoenix beat New Orleans. The Knicks edge out the Grizzlies. Of course, we talked about the Bulls and the Raptors. They're overtime. Miami, they beat Indy. Portland beat Brooklyn. And incidentally here with this score with Cleveland, 123-116 over Boston. They were down by as many as 22 earlier, but they were able to come back. Despite that, Donovan Mitchell had 41 points leading the way there. That comeback, this is despite having 46 points from Jason Tatum. And, of course, you saw it happen in the Sunday's games. But, yeah, Cleveland was able to pull it out.
Remember, Cleveland played in Boston on TNT about a couple of months ago early in the season. And that same scenario came up the first time. Cleveland just fell short. I know it was an early season game. Boston didn't take it that seriously, even though they ended up winning that game. I thought Cleveland gained some confidence after that game. And, of course, the same scenario occurred last Friday, as you mentioned. But they came back and won the game. I think it's going to give that team huge boat of confidence as they're trying to prove to everybody else that they're the number in Boston, that they're the true number 1 seed in the East. As we said before, Kenny Atkinson is your head coach of the year. I'm not saying it's a slander because J.B. Bickerstaff will have a lot to say about that from Detroit. But Donovan Mitchell doesn't have to be on the ball all the time. Darius Garland's healthy. Evan Mobley is having a better year, having the disappointing year last year. Jared Allen, the same thing. They're big guy in the middle. So Cleveland has a balanced roster, and you don't have to put everything on Donovan Mitchell's shoulders. Those 3 players I just mentioned, they stay healthy. They could definitely be something to reckon with in the playoffs. As I said before during our All-Star Power Hour show, Cleveland Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals. I can smell it, especially after that win last Friday on the road for Cleveland. That's going to give them a huge boost should they meet in the playoffs this year.
If you're Cleveland, I think at this point you want to think that win was huge because I think Boston had won 3 of the 4 matchups prior. So coming back from 22 down early, and then they were able to come back and they ended up winning the game. I think this will only help, especially if these 2 teams. I'm not saying it's likely, but it's highly likely that these 2 teams will be playing each other for the Eastern Conference Finals. So I think having this will definitely help with the confidence. I think if you're Boston, I think you can only look at this kind of game as just look, it happens. Cleveland Cleveland came back, and look, it is what it is. You're gonna have in a long season, stresses, especially you're going to this part where you have about 23 games left, 22, 23, depending on your schedule, and it's kind of like interesting, sort of how all this sort of plans out. I mean, Jaylen Brown had 37 points in that game, and Derek White had 16, but that was basically about it. Nobody else was in double figures for Boston. So in a lot of ways, you can kind of say that Boston kind of let their foot off the gas. They're going to need guys like your Al Horfords and Torrey Craig. You got Peyton Pritchard. I mean, you kind of have to, those guys are going to have to step up and help out Brown and Tatum if they want to go back to back.
And let's not forget about Kristaps Porzingis as well, because he's been injured off and on so far this year. So you have to manage his minutes and get him prepped up for the playoffs as well. So he's going to be, that third guy that the Boston Celtics are going to have to depend on come the postseason. But if you're a Celtics fan, you're not too worried. As long as you stay healthy as possible between now and when the playoffs start, you should be fine. And then the Celtics, I think they're still number 2 right now. They should fall no lower than 3rd. I think the Knicks are number 3 right now, but the way things are going with them, I think Boston is I'm not going to say contempt, but I think they'll be okay with number 2. If they get number 1, great, but their plan is just to get through the season healthy and probably stay at number 2 and get ready for a potential another long playoff run.
Yeah, that's 10 in a row for Cleveland. They're definitely they're like 7.5. They'll clear of Boston for that number 1 spot. So they'll probably end up unless Cleveland goes into like a big free fall, like a losing streak. I mean, they should be okay. That number 1 spot. You got the Knicks right behind Boston at 2.5 back. Then a little distance, 5.5 back. You got Milwaukee. And the Pacers, they're tied, but of course, the Bucks have the tiebreaker right now for that 4 spot, I should say. Detroit, they're well clear of that. I don't think anybody had that early in the season. And Miami, of course, this is 7. Orlando, Atlanta. They got the Bulls, and in case you're wondering where the Bulls are when it comes to the Sixers and the Nets, they're 2 games up on the Sixers and 2.5 up on the Nets. And like you said, so unfortunately the Nets are better, and the Sixers to some extent are better at tanking than the Bulls are. So unfortunately for all you Bulls fans, love you, Mac Peck, but I know how he feels about those, especially those last couple wins before that Toronto win. Yeah, it doesn't look like unless the Bulls really tank and the Nets or the Sixers go into a run and literally fall into that 10th spot. Looks like the Bulls are going to be back in that 10th spot again this year.
And then should that game be at home, the Ryan Stokes will be happy getting an extra check from the league for hosting a play-in home playoff game. Just saying.
Yeah, exactly. Now going to the West real quick. Of course, OKC, again, they're 10.5 up. They've won 3 in a row. The Lakers, they've won 6 in a row. They're and also the Nuggets as well. The Lakers, that win that they had against Nuggets, they've got the tiebreaker right now. Their Grizzlies are right behind them, a half game back. Then you got the Rockets. They're about 1 game back for that 5 spot, I should say, with Memphis. The Clippers, they're right there in that 6th spot right now. The Warriors and the T-Wolves, I mean, they're all in that jam for that 6th and 8th spot right now. So it could come down to those last couple weeks of the season. Then you got the Kings, half game behind them. The T-Wolves, I mean. The Mavs looks like, unless Phoenix goes into this run, they win 10 in a row or something, they're going to miss the playoffs, unfortunately. And it's a long jam between 6th and 10th. So, I'll leave the Suns out of that. But yeah, it's a long jam there with those last, few spots. So who's going to get that 6th spot?
I want to mention Dallas quickly. I know AD Anthony Davis has been out, but Kyrie Irving has done a magnificent job with running the point for Dallas. I know Max Christie has been doing a nice job as well. He was part of that Anthony Davis trade from the Lakers a few weeks ago. So, but Anthony Davis' presence, especially on the defensive end, not being there, is really hurt Dallas. As soon as he gets back, I think Dallas can make that run. Will they make it in time to get out of that play-in tournament spot? I don't think so, but I think they can make things interesting once he comes back in. As I talked about the game with the Golden State Warriors, if they stay in that 7th spot and they happen to get into the playoffs, wherever that 2-7 matchup is, I think that their opponent that's going to face the Warriors are in trouble. But the Warriors keep moving up the rankings to 6th and possibly 5th because the Clippers are messing around. That the Warriors are going to be that much more dangerous come playoff time. Are they a championship team? No, but I think they can cause some problems and maybe steal a first round matchup. It depends on who they play.
And I think they all 5 of these teams do play each other at some point. So it really could come down to whoever wins them head to head in those particular matchups. So yeah, it's like a half game like I said, between 6 and 10 through 10. So gonna be kind of interesting to see like who ends up getting out of that. I mean, you want to be in that 6th spot, so you'll have to play an extra game. So you probably put all 5 of these teams' names in the hat, and you probably say that, hey, look, this team's gonna be a 6 seed. You wouldn't be surprised. So that's really gonna be the thing here. So yeah, the next series is gonna be very interesting in the NBA.
Yeah, it's almost like a raffle. So let's get it started.
Going into the matchups for this week, let me see if my computer can cooperate here. Doing this live, folks. Okay, tonight's games. Monday, you got Golden State. They start their East Coast trip. They face Charlotte, Portland, and Philadelphia. Washington, Miami, Atlanta, and Memphis. Should be a good one here on NBA TV tonight. You got Houston and OKC. Could be a matchup in one of the early rounds of the playoffs. Sacramento and Dallas, another good one. And Detroit and Utah is the second game of the NBA TV. Well, it's a regional thing, so you got the OKC Houston game at 7. Then you got the Detroit Utah game at 8 o'clock on NBA TV.
Couple of things here for tonight. It's a Steph Curry homecoming for the Warriors, and Jimmy Butler is supposed to return to action tonight, so the Warriors should not have a problem with the lowly Hornets. And for the Detroit Pistons, I know they lost their game at home on Friday to the Denver Nuggets. Let's see if they can get back on track against one of the worst teams in the league as they start their West Coast road trip.
Mm-hmm.
All right, to Tuesday, busy slate of games. We'll start off with Houston at Indiana. Toronto will visit Orlando. Atlanta will host the Milwaukee Bucks. The first game of the TNT Tuesday night doubleheader as the Warriors will be playing in a back-to-back situation. Steph Curry and his Warriors will go into Madison Square Garden to take on the injury-riddled New York Knicks. The Cavaliers will visit the Bulls here in Chicago at the UC, as we mentioned earlier. Philadelphia will visit Minnesota. The Brooklyn Nets will take on the San Antonio Spurs in their road trip. And the second game in the Tuesday night doubleheader will feature the Phoenix Suns hosting Los Angeles Clippers. And rounding out the Tuesday night schedule, the New Orleans Pelicans will take on the Los Angeles Lakers.
We'll see if the Suns can get back on track in that game. Wednesday's games, you got Portland and Boston, Minnesota and Charlotte, Miami and Cleveland. That's the first game of the ESPN Wednesday night doubleheader. Utah, Washington, Dallas, and Milwaukee. That should be interesting. Kyrie and Giannis and Dame. Sacramento and Denver. Yeah, OKC and Memphis. That's the second game of the ESPN Wednesday doubleheader. And you got Detroit and the Clippers.
All right, your schedule for Thursday looks like this. Your Chicago Bulls will visit Orlando to take on the Orlando Magic. The Indiana Pacers will face the Atlanta Hawks in Atlanta. The first game of that NBA on TNT Thursday night doubleheader will feature the Philadelphia 76ers at the Boston Celtics. No Joel Embiid, so we'll see what kind of ratings that TNT will have for this game. The rest of the schedule for Thursday looks like this. The Warriors continue their East Coast road trip. They'll visit the Brooklyn Nets. The Houston Rockets will face the New Orleans Pelicans in the Big Easy. And rounding out that Thursday night doubleheader on TNT is the New York Knicks starting their West Coast road trip. They'll face the Los Angeles Lakers. And that's your schedule for the NBA for this upcoming week.
Maybe NBA finals, perhaps. Finals preview, perhaps. Maybe. We'll see. Hour number 1 in the books. Hour number 2 coming up here on Second City Sports. On Sports Zone Chicago, we'll stay in the round ball. We'll talk some college hoops. They're only a couple weeks from the March Madness officially starting. Illinois gets a big win, and so does Bradley. And Duke, send the message that they might be one of the top teams in the country as well. On the women's side, Juju Watkins leads her Trojans to their first ever Big Ten title. Of course, you got Seth Jones. You got traded from the Blackhawks over the weekend.
He gone.
Yep, and yeah, exactly. And of course, a veteran broadcaster announced his retirement. Just announced his retirement. We'll talk about that. And Old School TV Monday, and so much more. Lakina McGee, City Brown, Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago. March Madness talk coming up right after this.
I'm scared. I mean, you're
Do you know that you're in my lane? No, not at all. Are you not paying attention? Are you texting? I was just checking in with my mom. I was telling her that I thought we'd be home by 6. It's okay. There's enough time. Just pay attention. I'm not even halfway through my text. There's no way. I'm not even going to look up. My babies are in the car. You have to pay attention. It's just supposed to be a quick text. I'm so sorry.
Hi, I'm Tom Brady, the director of DODEA. September is National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. The simple act of reaching out and caring for those in our communities is something we all can do. Just being there for someone you care about can be a tremendous first step in getting them access to confidential resources and support that they need. It only takes one person and one small act and 1 minute to make a difference. Let's make a difference.
Move it!
Many will hear the calling. Few will earn the title. United States Marine. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Second City Sports on this Monday afternoon edition here, locked and loaded, and we're live in the living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Along with Miss Lakina McGee, which is she. I am Cindy Brown. You know that this is me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow my Kim again on the Twitter, X, and here's again IG.
We're diving into some college basketball, talk both the men's and the women's action from this past weekend. If you have any questions or comments for us during this segment, you can hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. Again, I'll get the up on the screen for you.
To the men's first, as we'll start with Illinois. Yesterday, they got a nice win against Michigan on the road, and Trey White had 19 points. And, you know, it's interesting that, like I said, they're still a little bit shorthanded. Of course, Montez Johnson, he might be back, next week for the Big Ten tournament in Indy. We'll see. But look, this is probably the best that Illinois has played in a long time. I mean, because Jonas had 17 points, as did Kylan Boswell. This is an Illinois team that you thought that maybe could perhaps get to the Final Four. I said could. But also, I think what helped them was that they're actually pretty good from three-point range. When they're hitting their threes, they're actually tough to beat. When they don't, they're not. So, unfortunately, this is one of the cases where they actually hit their threes and they actually, end up getting a big win at Ann Arbor.
Yeah, I watched that entire game yesterday, and I couldn't have been more prouder of this Illini team. This is a team that we expected to see throughout the season, but as we said on the show throughout the season, young teams like this that are stacked with talent that haven't had the chance to play together because of injuries or because of timing and whatnot, you start to see tough stretches a little bit longer than you thought. What we saw from this Illini team, at least through the month of January. But they've been great these last two games. They took care of Iowa last Tuesday and then won a tough game on the road in easy fashion in Michigan yesterday. Lakina, I said this on this program on Friday. I did not put a guarantee on it. I said with their remaining two games of the regular season before the Big Ten tournament, they had a better chance against Michigan other than Purdue. Now, has my opinion waned on that a little bit? No. Obviously, they took care of Michigan yesterday. I think this win will help them bring their confidence up as they wrap up the regular season portion of their schedule coming up on Friday against Purdue. We'll dive deeper into that matchup on our next episode coming up on Friday. But the way that the Illini played yesterday, they actually had an inside game. Yes, they were knocking down their shots from three-point range at a 37% clip, but the passing was excellent. They had a team high to 20 assists. And you mentioned Boswell. He ran the point very well for the Illini squad. Will Riley, even though he had an off game, but I thought he still played well, especially defensively. Jaco Chonis, as we mentioned, he's not your go-to guy scoring-wise. That belongs to Ivcevic and Will Riley. Let those two guys cook offensively, and everybody else can feed off of that. So it was a nice team win for Illinois. As of right now, Brad Underwood is off the hook. Using that in air quotes. So we'll see what they do, as I said, on Friday against Purdue to wrap up the regular season in the Big Ten at home and before the Big Ten tournament next week. So the Illini, they're peaking at the right time. Let's see if they can keep it up.
Staying in the Big Ten, of course, shout out to our buddy Spiro Diaz, friend of the show, who had the call of this game on CBS between Wisconsin and Michigan State. It was back and forth for a little bit, but Michigan State made some big shots late. Jaden Atkins had 19 points as they will clinch at least a share of the Big Ten title. Talk about Sparty as they beat Wisconsin by 9. John Blackwell had 16 points for Wisconsin, a losing effort there. Now, look, we know Coach Izzo does very well in March, so we'll see what happens here this year. But, yeah, at least Michigan State has looked good. Now, could they get a 2 seed perhaps maybe in the tournament in a couple of weeks? That time will tell there. But, yeah, at least Michigan State's been playing very well lately. Got a buzzer beater against Maryland on Thursday. Now they get this win against Wisconsin to kind of steal the Big Ten title. And, yeah, they're looking really good.
Yeah, Michigan State is peaking at the right time. You mentioned about Atkins earlier. I like that Richardson kid too. He could definitely play some ball. So those two guys will become a problem come Big Ten tournament time and, of course, the big March Madness tournament time. But looking at that game yesterday, Wisconsin got off to a 10-4 start, but they pulled the final line night. I know they shoot the three-pointer as far as percentage-wise better than the final line night, but after midway through that first half and starting that second half, when their shots were not falling, they were not getting to the basket. They had silly turnovers, and the Spartans had made the big plays down the stretch. They forced 9 turnovers from the Badgers, and they out-rebounded Wisconsin on the offensive end with a +4 margin, 13-9. So Michigan State with Tom Izzo's teams is not just about the talent that they have on the roster, which you need to have, but it's also about the intangibles, and the Michigan State Spartans did that, especially down the stretch yesterday.
In the American, Memphis, they clinched the number 1 seed in the regular season title for that tournament as they beat UAB. PJ Haggerty had 25 points for the Tigers as they avenged an early loss this season against UAB. So if you're a bubble team, you're cheering for Memphis to take care of business and win that tournament. They start that tournament next week. And Bradley, Zeke Montgomery had 13 points. They got a big win over Northern Iowa. I saw some of this game as well. They clinched the number 2 seed in the Missouri Valley Conference tournament, which starts, I believe, tomorrow with their early games. But because Bradley clinches the number 2 spot, they get a double bye. So that was a big win for Bradley yesterday.
Yeah, shout out to the whole coaching staff, the whole program of Bradley. They did their university proud yesterday. I watched that entire game on ESPN2 yesterday. Northern Iowa, they had the inside game early, but Bradley made their adjustments. And watch out for this point guard, Duke Dean. Duke Dean, he didn't have a great game the first time that they played Northern Iowa early in the year, but he came up big yesterday with those 3-point shots, and he could control the tempo as well. So the Bradley Braves made the adjustments at halftime. They started to go inside, especially with Hannah, number 35. he was a beast, as the kids would say, in that second half. So the shots were flowing from the outside, and they had the inside presence. Northern Iowa didn't know what to do, and Bradley won the game going outright in that second half. So Bradley is going to be a problem in that Missouri Valley Conference tournament. We know Drake is number one, as you mentioned, but hopefully, Lakina, those two teams meet in that conference tournament final next Sunday afternoon. That will be great. I still say that it's a two-bit lead.
Yes.
And
Illinois State and
like
USC,
I
they
think,
win
like I
their
said, Drake
respective
has on.
last cases.
Yeah, I think Drake, as if we stop the season would end it, they would get the automatic bid. But if Bradley somehow wins that tournament, I think that's how Drake will get in, because Drake's been dominant all year. They're the regular season champs. But if Bradley wins that conference tournament, I think that's how you're going to get your two teams from the Missouri Valley. I've been saying it all year. I'm sticking to it.
UIC and Illinois State, I think they will be playing each other on Thursday in the early round. So in the Missouri Valley Conference tournament, they win their respective last games of the season as well. So we'll talk about the Missouri Valley Conference tournament a little bit more in depth in a second. But going to Saturday's games, Auburn, they beat Kentucky 94-78. Miles Kelly had 30 points there in that game. Isaiah Evans had 19 as Duke beat Florida State. Now, of course, Cooper Flag got scratched in the eye, and he couldn't play the rest of the game there. But they were playing Florida State, so they didn't really need him. So it's probably fine if they rest him a little bit for going to that last couple of games of the season for Duke. Florida, they pulled away from Texas A&M. Houston, no trouble with Cincy. Tennessee with a three-pointer at the buzzer as they beat Alabama. I had my eye on this game as well. Another buzzer beater. I guess we're getting all the buzzer beaters that we didn't get last year, so that's why we're getting all these buzzer beaters before the tournament. But because of Alabama losing, that means Auburn gets the SEC title outright. So they're the number one seed when that tournament starts next week. So much to Sid's chagrin there, I'm sure. But if I can get
speaking of that Auburn Kentucky game, I couldn't see. I watched some of it, but most of us couldn't see the second half because of technical difficulties. Now, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, even though I do play one every once in a while on the show. But I think ESPN did not want to show that because Auburn was killing Kentucky, and we want to bounce out of that coverage early so we can get to some meaningless NHL hockey. I'm just saying.
You probably
but it gave me the opportunity to watch the St. John's Seton Hall game, which turned out to be a good game.
Yeah, I mean, look, Eugene Holloway and his guys credit me. They made St. John's earn that tournament title out, that Big East title, I should say, outright. First time they've done that since going back to 1985. Incidentally, that was the last time they went to the Final Four. So if you want to do parallels here, of course, Chris Mullin, Mark Jackson. They actually showed a clip of that. He had no beard at the time. Talking about Mark Jackson, that was a little bit weird to see. But a little weird flashback there. But yeah, Iowa State and Arizona. Iowa State pulled away from them there. Texas Tech held off Kansas. It got a little bit chippy. I guess one of the Texas Tech players says that he was a subject of I guess like racial slurs thrown at him during that game. And unfortunately, this is usually what happens when your team's not playing well. If you're Kansas, unfortunately, and this is sort of like, they've kind of been in free fall the last few games. So yeah, unfortunately, this type of stuff happens, and it's just sickening.
Yeah, what you just said, I had a flashback to Marcus Smart. Remember, he was at OK State as a similar incident happened there. Nothing too much came out of that, but you definitely don't want stuff like that in our sports world or any part of our society. But going back to Kansas, we talked about Bill Self snapping at his team, I think about a week or two ago, and they won their next game. I don't know how many motivational tactics you need to pull before your Big 12 tournament next week, but Kansas is in the free fall. They're still in the tournament, but you falling on that dangerous line of not making it in. So Kansas needs to turn around quickly.
Yep. Clemson quietly. I don't think anybody's really noticing. Clemson, I think they're fine with that. They beat Virginia. No trouble with them there. Vanderbilt pulled another upset. They beat Mizzou 97-93 in overtime on Saturday. Maryland held off Penn State. Louisville beat Pitt. Marquette over Georgetown. St. Mary's over Oregon State. Mississippi State over LSU. BYU, no trouble with West Virginia. North Carolina, no trouble with Miami. Let's see here. Arkansas loses it. South Carolina by 19 there. I know Sid was happy about that. New Mexico, they beat New Mexico, no trouble with Air Force and Loyola. They won their game on Friday as well to improve their seeding against St. Louis, to improve their seeding in the A10 tournament. They start that tournament next week as well. Georgia Tech beat NC State, so that's another bubble game as well. Colorado State beat Utah State in that tournament. USC loses to Oregon. That's another one of these bubble matchups there as well. Creighton, Xavier beat Creighton. They're kind of a little bit of a free for all as well. I know they've had some injuries. I'm talking about Creighton did, so that's probably one of the issues as well there. And Wake Forest beat Notre Dame. That could be a bubble matchup for them as well. So yeah, a lot of teams are answering that bubble bell, and some of them are not. Georgia beat Texas. Santa Clara beat Pacific, and Gonzaga, no trouble with San Francisco. They get the number 2 seed going to the West Coast Conference tournament, which starts later this week.
And let's not forget about the Big Ten. Nebraska quietly having a surprising good year. Coach Fred Hoiberg has done a magnificent job, but they lost by 2 points to Minnesota last Saturday. So they could be, I'm talking about Nebraska could be in trouble as they head to the Big Ten tournament next week in Indianapolis. So watch out for them there. Maryland quietly getting it done. As you mentioned, I know they suffered that big loss against Michigan State last week, but looks like they're starting to get back on track too. So with those West Coast teams we said before the start of the year, it's a lot of competition to get into the big dance, and I'm interested to see what this Big Ten tournament looks like next week, because there's going to be a lot of positioning going on there, and that's why going back to the Illini, that was a huge win on the road yesterday against a surprisingly good Michigan Wolverines team.
Well, and speaking of the Big Ten Northwest, maybe Iowa to try to kind of make sure to get into that top 18, to not be in that bottom 3, because if you're in the bottom 3, you can't play in the Big Ten tournament. That's how it's set up this year. So we'll see what happens. Now going to this week's games, as a lot of these the bigger conferences are finishing up their regular season. Wake Forest and Duke. Duke will be interested to see if they can get into that overall number 1 seed right now. That's at 6 o'clock on ESPN. You've got, let's see, you got Kansas and Houston. Kansas has been in free for all. Houston trying to kind of at least get clinch a share of the Big 12 title. We'll see if they can do that. Northwestern, again, they got to keep winning. They want to stay out of that bottom 3 in the Big 10. They're gonna have a tough one. They host UCLA on FS1 at 8 o'clock. And you got Eastern Washington, Montana, a little Big Sky Conference. Actually, those are the top 2 teams there. You could be seeing one of those teams in a tournament in a couple of weeks, so get to know them.
All right, your schedule for Tuesday looks like this. At 6 p.m. on Peacock, we have Rutgers traveling to West Lafayette, Indiana, to take on 18th ranked Purdue. Purdue needs a big win in the big way before heading on the road to close out the Big Ten season this coming Friday against the Illini. At the same time on ESPN2, LSU will take on number 19 Kentucky. Kentucky 19-10 on the year. How will they respond after being embarrassed at home by Auburn? We shall see there. Also, going on the Tuesday schedule on ESPNU, surprisingly enough here, North Carolina travels to Morgantown to take on Virginia Tech. Do you think that North Carolina is out of the woods yet? Because according to some pundits, they're the last 4 teams to get in. I think they could continue to win, but I'm going to see what they're going to do next week in the ACC tournament.
Yeah, I think I win a couple games of the ACC tournament, because I think the I want to say the bubble swap is kind of like a little flexible this year, so it's going to be a lot of maneuvering back and forth. It's really going to depend on how folks finish up these tournaments, and also how you do in the conference tournaments too. You saw what happened with NC State last year. I mean, they got in, they ended up going all the way to the Final Four. So we'll see if North Carolina can do the same this year.
All right, continuing with this Tuesday schedule at 8 o'clock on ESPN, number 1 Auburn will play at number 22 Texas A&M with the Aggies. At the same time on ESPN2, number 23 BYU in Big 12 action will take on number 10 Iowa State. The Cyclones are 22-7, BYU 21-8. On ESPN Plus, West Virginia will play Utah, two bubble teams right there. And finishing out the Tuesday schedule, Indiana will travel to Oregon at 8 p.m. on FS1 in Big 10 action. At the same time on Peacock, Nebraska will take on Ohio State. Big game for both teams, bigger game for Nebraska, in my opinion. And rounding out the Tuesday night schedule, we'll have Arizona State at Arizona on ESPN. At the same time on the CBS Sports Network, San Diego State will play UNLV.
Definitely a bubble team. Talking about San Diego State, so yeah, definitely going to be an interesting game there. Wednesday. These matchups. A good one here in the Big Ten at 5:30 on BTN. You got Maryland and Michigan, and at the Big East, the same time on FS1. You got DePaul and Providence. Good one in the SEC on ESPN2. You got number 5 Florida, number 7 Alabama. That should be
That's going to be a high scoring game.
Yes. We'll see what mood Alabama's going to be in after losing to Tennessee. We'll be interested to see how these guys respond. Clemson, they're the top. They're in number 11. They're facing Boston College on ESPNU at 6 o'clock. You got Xavier and Butler on CBS Sports Network, and you've got Minnesota hosting Wisconsin. They got to keep winning if they can pull it off to get out of that bottom 3. They're right there, that bottom 3 with Northwestern and them in Washington. Colorado and Texas Tech on ESPN Plus at 7. You got Mizzou and Oklahoma. They need this win. I'm talking about Oklahoma. They want to have a chance to get into that bubble. I see somewhere they're kind of like I'm on the last 4 in, and I think some have the next 4 out. So we'll see what Porter Moves or his guys do. Marquette and UConn on FS1 at 7:30. And you got Tennessee and Ole Miss on ESPN2. Cal and Louisville on the ACC network. Loyola Chicago trying to prove their city for the A10 tournament. They host Davidson. And you got an old Big 10 slash old Pac-10 slash Pac-12. They got the Big 10, of course, will face each other in that conference this year. Then you got USD and hosting Washington.
Going back to Loyola Chicago, they need a bounce back game against Davidson because they got blown out at St. Louis by 30. I saw 2 minutes of that. I was like, this is not going to be a good game for Drew Valentine crew. So they need to get that bad taste out of their mouth quickly. Going to Thursdays, actually you got some of the smaller tournaments starting, as you mentioned, with the Missouri Valley Conference tournament, the ASUN Championship, and you got the West Coast Conference starting in the first round. We'll give you those results on Friday's show. Of course, you got the Patriot League Championship starting too. And some of the other games that are non-conference of note, we'll have Michigan State, number 8 Michigan State at Iowa on Thursday. That's at 7 p.m. on FS1. And also too, we'll have the Horizon League Championship starting on Thursday as well. So most of your mid-major conference title, mid-major conference tournament title games will tournaments will start on Thursday. So we'll keep you abreast on the details on our next show coming up on Friday. And speaking of the Missouri Valley Conference, the first game at night at 8:30 on Thursday, Valparaiso will take on UIC. Shout out Jay Hood of ESPN 1000. Hope he has a safe and healthy trip, and hopefully he'll get an extended stay if UIC wins.
Well, incidentally, another friend of the show, our buddy Jordan Burfield, is actually going to be doing the Horizon League tournament again this year. So I'm sure he's going to have a lot of fun. Him with David Patrick, of course, former standout at Kentucky. I think he won a national championship with Mark Polk in 96. Well, 98, I should say. So those two, that should be a fun tournament there as well. And so this is the time of year, folks. Conference tournaments. Let's go.
Yep. You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Celia Lakina here with you on this Monday edition of the program. Let's turn to the Diamonds as the Chicago White Sox and the Chicago Cubs continued their action throughout the weekend in spring training. And of course, the Dodgers got the best of the Chicago White Sox 6-3. Freddie Freeman, last year's World Series MVP, had a home run. Davis Martin for the White Sox, who started the game, he looked good as well. In 2 innings pitch, he had 3 strikeouts, no walks, no hits, no earned runs. But the White Sox bullpen hot garbage to say the least as they try to get that situation straightened out. But on the other side of town, Matt Sharp for the Chicago National League Ball Club, the Chicago Cubs, he made his debut as the Cubs went down in defeat to the Cincinnati Reds 7-3.
Not like their first loss in Cactus League play. Boo! No, I'm kidding. No, but he looked really good. Well, and Martin looked really good too for the White Sox, and he actually got Shohei looking. You know, he's gonna remember that, I'm sure. He's not gonna be very happy about that. Talk about Shohei, so you can put that in your disposal, but they're gonna remember that. But yeah, I mean, look, I think you're finishing up these last 3 weeks of spring training. Of course, the Cubs are gonna be going to Asia to play the Dodgers. Opening up the season, so that's going to be
About 2
interesting
weeks,
to see.
I think.
Yep. So yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens there as well. So yeah, I think look. I mean, that's what you want if you're the White Sox. Shaw looked really good, so it's fine. I think you want them to actually keep improving as we get more and more into spring training play. So we'll see what happens with that. Now the Braves have already. One of the reasons why the Braves, didn't even make the playoffs last year was because of injuries. Like they've already suffered their first big injury. Sean Murphy, the catcher, he's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks with a rib injury. So the injuries already starting already for Atlanta. Like if you're the Braves, you're a Braves fan, you're like, really, seriously? I thought we went through this already last year.
Yeah, they got eliminated by the San Diego Padres quickly and with that 2-game sweep in the wild card round last year. Of course, now with Chris Sale is back. I know they lost Max Fried via free agency to the Yankees, but Ronald Acuna Jr. is back, and so most of the big pieces are in place. Well, like you said, Sean Murphy is important because he's the anchor of that young Atlanta Braves pitching staff. So that's going to be huge as well. I know we're going to get more deep into it within the next couple of weeks or so, but that NL East is going to be very competitive. We saw what the New York Mets did last year, picking it up late June and carrying it all the way to the NLCS before losing to the Dodgers. Philadelphia, they were the number one team next to the Dodgers in the league all year. Of course, their bats went cold against the Mets in that divisional playoff. Of course, we mentioned by Atlanta, they barely limped into the playoffs before bowing out to San Diego. So the NL East, assuming everybody's going to be healthy, minus the Sean Murphy injury, is going to be very competitive on paper, and I cannot wait to watch it.
Definitely going to be interested to see what happens there. Now, unfortunately, same with the injuries. Giancarlo Stanton will be starting his season on the IL with injuries to both of his elbows. That's been a problem with him this spring. So he has apparently he's had plasma injections in both his elbows. I mean, they've been issues since he got it back for spring training. So now he's going to be sidelined for the next couple of weeks, but he is expected to join the team again next week. So you hope this isn't the start of a trend. And also DJ LeMahieu, he hurt his calf during their win over Houston. So we'll see how long he's going to be out. But Arabu did say that injury is a little bit more concerning than Stanton's elbows. But not a good start for the Yankees. And the injury front.
We talked about Giancarlo Stanton last year, especially during the playoffs, who I thought it was the MVP. He was healthy for the most part last year, and to start off this way, it's not good. But it looks like Brian Cashman has built a little bit more depth around that team. Cody Bellinger, let's not forget who they acquired from the Chicago Cubs. He's going to be expected to step up with Stanton being on the shelf to start the year. And let's not forget Marcus Stroman, who's been lost in the shuffle. Will he make the roster? Will he make the starting rotation for this New York Yankees team? We shall see it as we progress here in spring training.
Yeah, it's he's kind of been like that lost guy, if you will. But again, he probably prefers it that way, I guess. So we'll see what happens there. But gonna be interesting. Also, Paul Skeens made a nice impression in his spring training debut versus the Orioles. He actually showed off a couple of new pitches to his repertoire. They're a nice little cutter that caught a couple of guys looking, and they ended up being the Orioles 5-2 on Saturday.
Yeah, Paul Skeens entering year number 2. I know most teams will have a book on him, but the question is, will he adjust to what the opponent's going to give him? He was one of the best rookie pitchers in the league last year. for a Pirates team. Some people expect to make a jump, but we'll see what will the Paul Skeens and the rest of that team has the stars in the NL Central. So he's off to a nice start. We'll see if he can improve on what he did last year. I know you beat your Cubs all 4 times he faced them, so that should tell you something.
Well, yeah. Like
sorry to rub it in by this spit the facts.
Yeah, I mean, look. I saw that cutter. I think he caught a couple of those Orioles players looking, but like I said, it's gonna be interesting. Like once more and more teams have tape on him. So again, like I said, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens. But yeah, I think Skeens could he perhaps maybe look teams are gonna be figuring you out. So yeah, gonna be interesting though. But yeah, that cutter looked really good. But yeah, but will teams start to kind of roll the punches to figure him out? That's gonna be the key here. We'll see what happens.
Coming up, Bill Belichick, or Bill Belichick, as we call on him on this show, he'll be coming soon to a TV near you. We didn't get to this on Friday, but sticking with college football, we have win totals projections for next year. Want to get your thoughts, Lakina, on that. We have news on Mike Tirico, our tribute to R&B/Neo Soul legend Angie Stone, and Old School TV Monday. As you stick and stay right here on Second City Sports on Sports Soul Chicago.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I need for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils, too. These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Welcome back to Second City Sports on this Monday edition. You're locked and loaded, and we're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid, that's Lakina. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow Matt King Mickey on the Twitter, X, and the IG.
This is our last break of the show for today. So, if you have any last minute questions or comments during our rapid fire segment, you can definitely hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comments section. Lakina, get up on the screen for you.
All right, so some breaking news here in the NFL. As expected, the Bengals have, in fact, this is according to Ian Rappaport, Diana Rossini, and others, that they are placing the franchise tag on one Mr. T. Higgins for the second straight year. He is due about $28.5 million due to him. He actually even put a little bit of a little thing on Twitter like tag. So I guess, I think some people are saying you're it. So yeah, he is it. And yeah, once again, the franchise tag on Mr. T. Higgins.
Yeah, Cincinnati has some problems potentially on their hands. Of course, Carson Palmer. I said Carson Palmer. Bad on me. Mr. Joe Money Burrow, has that big contract. Again, Trey Hendrickson, who led the team in sacks, he's due for a big deal. So, how will the Cincinnati Bengals manage all of this? I'm not sure if they can. So, something's going to have to give here. Will Hendrickson leave? It may be a realistic possibility. I'm not sure, but T. Higgins is back for another year. It does give Joe Burrow that big time target that he needs. I know he already has Jamar Chase, but with the financial constraints of other important players do offer big deals, you cannot keep everybody, even though the cap is going up. We all know this. Outside the quarterbacks, your edge rushers are next, along with your big offensive linemen. As we see with Trey Smith of the Kansas City Chiefs, those are the next players in those positions that has the huge contracts. So you got to manage the salary cap the best way you can. Cincinnati is about to find that out right now.
I'm interested to see what they do with Jamar Chase. So, yeah, to be continue on that one now. More NFL leftover NFL news from earlier. Apparently, I guess if you believe the Chris Emma of The Score, he's saying, okay, this is what he said earlier this morning. Sources believe that Khalil Mack has interest in returning to Chicago. A 1 or 2 year deal on an edge rusher. Yeah, well, he's had some injury issues since while playing with the Chargers. I don't know. I mean, I just think he's 34. He's had a lot of wear and tear. We get all these Bears fans that, I don't know. Would you want, if you're Khalil Mack, do you want to come back to Chicago?
If they offer him the most money than those other teams that I think he's a better fit, then I'm sure that's why he'll come here. As we talked about before the show, I think we mentioned this before last week or the week before when we did our free agent list, and his name came up. I said, if a team like a Philadelphia or a Dallas or a Washington, if they don't meet his price tag, then maybe he'll come here because that's his last option, almost like a Dwayne Wade situation when he came to the Bulls many moons ago. So that's the way that I see it. Maybe Khalil Mack sees it another way, but we all know that after that first year, which was great in 2018 when the Bears won the NFC North, he started to have injuries with his knees toward the end of that season, and it reoccurred throughout the next couple of years when he was in the Bears uniform. He made a great impact to start off, but those injuries and those miles are starting to wear down. So, okay, if he's back here, okay, but does he solve all your edge rushing problems? No. That's why if you're Jim Ryan Poles, you better be careful how much you're going to pay him, because you're still going to need another edge rusher via the draft.
Yeah, the whole thing is kind of like scratch me as sources believe. Who are these sources and where are they learning this from? Are they learning this from maybe like a distant cousin of his or such saying this? I mean, the sources believe thing is really what kind of throw. Chris, he and I were in the same class over at IMS, and I'm not, I know he's a great writer and reporter. I know he's got, some connections there, but the sources believe thing is really what kind of throws me off guard. Who are these sources and they believe this? How? Did they start to talk to him directly? They talk to a family member of his that they heard in passing. So yeah, this whole thing just seems a little bit weird, but I mean, if you want to bring him back, fine. But again, as a piece, but again, you're not gonna get the same Khalil Mack that was here in Chicago. Like I said, he's had a lot of wear and tear, and he's 34 years old. But we'll see, I guess.
Like I said, he's a complimentary piece, especially given his age at his point of his career. But the very thing that he's going to solve their problems with the rushing the quarterback, they're in for a huge surprise. Like I said, I like Khalil Mack personally, but I don't think his signing solves all the Bears' problems on that side of the ball. It doesn't.
All right, let me see. Is there anything other in NFL before we move on? Nope. Okay, so a couple of sports media news, some more breaking news. If you were listening to reading watching Colin Cowherd, Jimmy Johnson, of course, no, not the former NASCAR driver Jimmy Johnson, but the former two-time Super Bowl winning head coach with Dallas, and of course won a national championship with the University of Miami, announced on Colin Cowherd's The Herd that he is retiring. Of course, there were rumors about this, during the Super Bowl, of course, that Fox had. So, but he made it official. There's clips going around, and with him and now Terry Bradshaw. Of course, he made the announcement before the playoffs that this is going to be his last year. So yeah, so there's going to be a lot of turnover at Fox NFL Sunday for next season.
Yeah, congratulations to Jimmy Johnson on a great broadcasting career. He was just as great as he was as a head coach. And when we were watching in the early years, Lakina, he took that break to go coach to the Miami Dolphins. I thought it stunk, but he had to do what he had to do. He was obviously much younger then. But that tribute they did during the Super Bowl a month ago now, it seemed very weird with the help of AI. I thought that part was weird, and I know he kind of gave that hint away. But Jimmy Johnson was an institution for that the launch of the NFL on Fox, and he's definitely going to be missed. He wasn't out of touch, unlike Terry Bradshaw. He was still sharp in his analysis. I know. Like you said, with his scheduling, it started in 2020 with COVID. He worked every other week, and so they were preparing for his I want to say his exit, but for his retirement over the last few years. But his analysis is still sharp. He's still one of the best college and pro football coaches in history. He has a spot in the Pro Football Hall of Fame along with the Cowboys Hall of Fame. So a great career, and salute to Mr. Jimmy Johnson. Of course, that opens up that spot for Rob Gronkowski to replace him full time now.
Gonna be gonna be interesting to see, of course, Michael Vick, of course, he's now gonna be coaching over at Norfolk State. So, that's another thing to kind of,
that should be Jameis Winston's spot.
Oh, well, look, has he announced his retirement? Yeah, I'm talking about Jameis Winston. So, I don't know, he might not want to retire just yet, but definitely a lot of turnover over that Fox NFL Sunday show. So, that's going to be interesting there. Now, with more sports media news now, all of you DC fans are probably feeling better about this. Nationals and the Orioles have finally settled a lengthy dispute over MASN TV rights. Games for Nationals will be broadcast by MASN under the new one-year contract on there. As for the Orioles, they also will be they will also be showing that. So this dates all the way back to 2012 when Washington would be free from its deal with the Mid-Atlantic Sports Network. That's what they call for after the upcoming season. So this goes back a good over a decade, but they've resolved their issues, and all the litigations finally is dismissed.
Yeah, good for them, because I know both those teams in the Beltway area share that same network. But what does that mean in terms of here in Chicago? We talked about it on our show last Friday with Marquee moving to the highest tier on Xfinity/Comcast, and now their owner Sinclair wants to divorce themselves from them. I don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon. What does this mean for CHSN? Will they have a deal in place with Comcast in time for opening day on March 27th? Me personally, I doubt it, but some folks still hold out hope. I wouldn't if I were you, but these carriage deals across the country, as people are moving away from traditional cable, is all about streaming. I think at some point it's all going to be about streaming exclusively. At the end of all this, Lakina, what channel is Young and the Rest is on? CBS. Oh, channel 2. There's no channel 2. Download the app, and that's the same thing that's going to happen with sports. You got to download this app and download that app to stream it on your television. So there's where this is going to eventually. So, we just got to be prepared for the change. Change happens suddenly, and it takes time. It doesn't happen just like that.
Yeah, so that's going to be another thing here now. I know you got a couple other sports media nuggets that you want to share before we move on.
Yes, Bill Belichick, the former NFL head coach. Of course, he's coaching the North Carolina Tar Heels for this upcoming season. And HBO's Hard Knocks, the offseason edition, last year it featured the New York Giants. We all saw what happened with the Saquon Barkley mess. He ditched them and went to Philadelphia. Now he's a world champion. This year, the North Carolina Tar Heels and Bill Belichick's crew will be featured on the offseason of Hard Knocks. It will feature him, Michael Lombardi, and the current players they have on their roster. You'll go behind the scenes of how this team will for the 2025 season will be formed. And Bill Belichick, doesn't give too much behind the scenes, but it's going to be interesting to see how he's covered. Of course, last year he was on the Manning cast on Monday Night Football. He was on Inside the NFL on the CW. He was starting to show his personality a little bit. I just want to see how he's going to be betrayed. Is he being when he's being followed this offseason for this Hard Knocks show, college style?
Yeah, apparently I guess they're gonna be doing like the spring game, which is coming up soon for them. And yeah, I'm we're just like, well, which one are you gonna get? Are you gonna get the Bill Belichick that Tom Brady and Julian Edelman and Gronby saying that, oh, he's not, this guy is not, or you're gonna get this guy that that you see on television where he's gonna be a little bit engaging, he's gonna be a little bit more open and such. So it's gonna be interesting how all this goes. But yeah, I mean, look, if you're a North Carolina fan, you gotta be, this might actually end up being good for them, but it could also end up being a disaster. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I might check it out. I said I might. Usually I don't usually do this kind of thing with the college football, but I might check it out. We'll see.
Yeah, I'll peep in on it. And of course, North Carolina is using this as a recruiting tool for players to come down there. It's going to be interesting to see how Bill Belichick separates the boys from the men, quote unquote, because many of those players on their roster right now, I watched you growing up, and they'll be struggling. Some players will probably hop on this, so they want to be on TV. Kenny, I think he will separate the men from the boys. Who really wants to be here and who wants to be on TV? I'm trying to form a football team here. I'm not trying to see if you want to be a reality TV star. I'm trying to form an actual football team.
Yeah, so yeah, I was kind of surprised when I saw the news. I'm like, wait, he's actually allowing this, but I wonder if his 24-year-old girlfriend has something to do with this. But that's
I think many people will tune in for the beginning to see if you see her.
Probably, but yeah, probably, but yeah, it's ought to be interesting to see what happens there. But yeah, that'll come up sometime later in the spring.
All right, going back to baseball, Apple TV has announced their Friday night schedule. And, of course, the White Sox will have 0 appearances. Shocking. While your Chicago Cubs will have 2 appearances on Friday Night Baseball. Through this schedule is through June 27th. The Cubs are set for 2 appearances on Apple TV. One is on May the 2nd. The Cubs at the Milwaukee Brewers at 7 p.m. And then again on June the 6th, when they face the Detroit Tigers in Motown at 6 p.m. So your Cubs are going to get 2 appearances on Apple TV Plus. These in the first half of the year of the schedule.
Yeah, that should be interesting though. We'll see if they get added, if they're added more games. But yeah, gonna be interesting to see what happens in this game, with this. But yeah, I mean, look, if so far it's looked good. The Apple experiments will look good. They've had decent streamers in that realm. So, but yeah, I mean, we'll be interested to see what happens with those games this year. I know they got a couple other top games as well. But yeah, it should be interesting though. And it's like the 3rd year they've done this, so we'll see how it goes.
And congratulations to a hometown guy in front of the show, Russ Dorsey. He'll be returning as one of the hosts/analysts for their Friday night coverage again this year.
Yep. So so this should be a fun group of games every Friday night on Apple TV Plus. We'll go through that scheduling when the time comes. Now, you have any more sports media news before we go to?
Yes. Mike Tirico, he'll be the new number 1 voice for the NBA on NBC starting next season. Of course, Iron Eagle's son, Noah Eagle, who you interviewed a couple of years ago, he'll be the second voice on the network next year. But Mike Tirico will be filling in on 2 EBA games this week, starting tonight. If you have NBA League Pass, he'll be filling in for Kate Scott on the Philadelphia broadcast. The Sixers will host the Portland Trailblazers, and on Wednesday night, the Portland Trailblazers will continue their West Coast road trip at Boston as the Boston Celtics will host the Portland Trailblazers, and Mike Tirico will be filling in for Drew Carter on the Boston telecast on NBC Sports Boston.
Yeah, that's gonna be gotta get those muscles towing, getting him geared up for going back to being the number one voice in the NBA. So that'll be interesting there. Anything else before we move on? Any other sports media nuggets and news?
No, I want to go to just a couple of teams real quick as far as college football, as far as the win totals for next year, real quick. We can spend about a minute or two on this. I won't go through all the teams, but in the ACC for next year, they have North Carolina's win total 7.5. You going over or under?
I haven't looked at their schedule just yet, but I would say, I mean, look, I mean, we've seen like weird things happening, and we don't know how these teams are gonna respond to to Coach Belichick, but I mean, if you want to, I'll keep it just. I think they'll probably win maybe 7. Let me see if I can get their schedule real quick, but I'll probably put it at 7. I think I'm sure they're gonna have a lot of national TV appearances this coming season. But yeah, I probably put it right there at 7. Yeah, so I'm gonna put them right there at 7.
Okay, they have the Miami Hurricanes at 9. We'll go to the Big Ten. Illinois 7.5, Michigan State 5.5, Northwestern 3.5, Ohio State, your defending national champions, at 10.5, Oregon at 10.5, and Penn State at 10.5. And the Indiana Hoosiers, who had a surprising year last year, 8.5.
Yeah, I guess I think they're gonna take a step back. Like I said, I'm not really, I don't really get into the college football right now. This second, I know a lot of these teams are getting ready for their spring games. So in the like about a little like right in the month or near the end of the month, right before Easter. But yeah, I like I said, I mean, I have to look at their scheduling. I have to like really see, because you're still in the middle of the recruiting season. So I really can't comment on that stuff right now. I usually don't get into that just yet.
I'll throw out just a couple of more. Colorado in the Big Ten, 6.5. Of course, no more Travis Hunter, no more Shedeur Sanders. In the SEC, Alabama at 9, and Georgia at 10.
Yeah, I can see probably that. And same thing with Colorado. Like I said, you're not gonna no more Shedeur Sanders, no more Travis Hunter. So I could probably see that maybe be right near the push, get to that 6th spot, perhaps barely making it to the bowl game. So we'll see what happens with them. Listen, I can see what.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You finish up.
And Notre Dame, last team, they had their win total at 10. I can see them maybe taking a small step back, but they can win double-digit games again. They have Notre Dame at 10.
Again, I gotta see their schedule. Like I said, I usually don't look at the schedule just yet. So, I'm in college football, I'm in college hoops mode right now. But I can see some of those win totals. Listen, I can see sports on Sports. I got Kim McGee Brown with you. Let's do the hockey real quick, Sid. Seth Jones basically was begging to leave the Blackhawks. Well, you know what? He got his wish yesterday as he was traded to the Florida Panthers on Saturday for Spencer Knight, which is their goalie, and a conditional first-round pick in 26. They also received a 4th-round pick in 26 in return from the Blackhawks.
Yep. Yeah, so it's important for the Kyle Davidson crew to pick up those draft picks. I know, as we talked about on the show, they definitely need a goalie for the future. I don't know if this guy is it or not. They're going to take a swing at, take a chance on it and see what happens. But we talked about Seth Jones. He was, like you said, he was begging to get out of here. He wasn't having the best of seasons, and let's be realistic. He was one of those veteran holdovers when Connor Bedard was selected before the start of last season to help him go along, to have a competitive team and help bring along some of these young guys. But the way things have gone on this season, I like him personally, but he just wasn't playing well. And you got to get those veterans out of there that do. If you don't want to be there, you got to help them get them out of there. So Kyle Davidson had no choice but to do that. And so we'll see what happens with the Blackhawks going forward. But for Florida, this is a good move for them to help boost up their blue line.
Yeah, because looks like Matt Kachuk's is gone for the rest of the season with that groin injury that was actually bothering him during the foreign nation. So
Yeah.
now he's done for the regular season. So yeah, perfect timing for this trade for the Panthers.
So that's Florida's still going to be still going to be a good team, but the loss of Kachuk is going to be a huge loss.
Indeed. Now, little women's hoops, real quick, as Juju Watkins and the USC women, they're number 2 in the poll behind Texas for the first time since '86. They've, that's the highest they've been here, and of course, they win the Big Ten for the first time since, of course, joining the conference earlier this season. So yeah, they clinched a spot there. Paige Beckers and the UConn women's Huskies, they clinched another Big East tournament, and and it will be South Carolina will be the number 1 seed in the SEC tournament thanks to a coin flip. Which I'm sure if you're if you're Texas, you're not very happy with Big Schaefer in Texas. You're not very happy with that because you lose a chance at the 1 seed, which could mean a lot of who you play later down the line. But yeah, that was interesting yesterday. I know Greg Sankey, who is the wonderful SEC commissioner. I know he said he was practicing that flip for like the last 2 days since they found out that. Like I said, I would love like a rock paper scissors thing with Don Staley and Vic Schaefer. That would have been a lot more entertaining. But again, that's just me.
That definitely would have made some great viral moments on social media, but it was neither hero there. But I did get a chance to watch the majority of the UCLA USA game from Saturday night. Great turnout by the celebrities. Jaden Daniels, the quarterback for the Washington Commanders. Of course, Cheryl and Reggie Miller were both there. Both of them were going at it as brothers and sister always does. Cheryl rooting for, of course, USC, Reggie Miller, UCLA. This is really the first time I got a chance to see UCLA up close, Lakina. That Lauren Betts, as the kids would say, she's a beast. She's a beast.
Yes,
but the problem with the problem with the Bruins last Saturday, they couldn't shoot the ball well. Yeah, they got physical with the Trojans, but they couldn't shoot the ball. And Juju Watkins, she didn't have the greatest game. She still was effective, but the Trojans' defense was very good. They created a lot of turnovers. They got most of their points, especially when they opened that game up in that second half. They got a bunch of their points. I'm talking about the Trojans off of the Bruins' turnovers. So overall, a good performance from USC. Juju Watkins is that chick, as I said on this program before. USC is going to be a problem. Now, going into the women's tournament, like, I'm going to ask you about UCLA. Do you think they can give South Carolina a game should they meet up in March Madness this year?
Well, yeah, the one you just gave them their weakness is the 3-point they have. They're not a good 3-point shooting team in that Bruins squad. They've only lost 2 games because they've been able to get everybody else. I know that Kiki Rice is one of the top guards in the country. So is Angela Dugalic and London Jones. But they got to get that 3-point going if they want to go deep in the tournament. That's what happened in the last couple of years. So they definitely got to get that going there as well. Now, as far as Juju and the Trojans, I mean, Kiki Uriah, of course, you guys remember she played at Stanford with Tara Vader before she transferred. But if she can get it going, kind of help Juju out a little bit, they're going to have to get other ladies to step up as well. They want to get a chance, perhaps, winning a national championship for the first time. I think it'll be like over 40 years since they've been to a Final Four. So yeah, that's going to be interesting. South Carolina, I mean, again, they had their struggles. Of course, they lost to UConn, like they said a couple of weeks ago, but they still going to be a force to be reckoned with. Texas, they're right there too. So yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot of, like I said, this is probably going to be a very wide open women's tournament. It might be one of those instances where you might like catch somebody at a bad shooting night, and you might catch someone with a bad a bad shooting night could definitely end the tournament for you. So if you're USC, don't want that to happen. I know LSU. I know they've had one of their top players. I know they're going to miss the SEC tournament because she has a shin injury, but. Like I said, it's gonna be one of those things where you gotta get hot at the right time. We'll see if that team, if USC is that team, or Dago, they might be that team. So we'll see.
All right, you're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid Lakina hanging out here with you. We have a few minutes left on today's program. Before we get to Old School TV Monday, we had to pay tribute to the late great R&B slash neo soul singer Angie Stone, who tragically passed away late Friday night, early Saturday morning in Birmingham, Alabama, at the age of 63. She was doing a performance of slash concert in the state of Alabama last Friday. Of course, she died tragically in the car accident. She was 63 years old. She's been singing ever since her childhood. We saw her come into the music scene in 1979 as part of the first hip hop female trio called The Sequence. They had a song called Funk You Up, which reached number 15 on the U.S. top black singles chart. And this I didn't know at the time, but that was the first female hip hop group for that song to go gold. Of course, they were before Salt and Pepper and Jade, and of course MC Light and Queen Latifah, all the female MCs in the rap industry. They all followed the sequence after that. I remember the song, but I didn't know what type of success they had at that time. Remember, rap was in its early stages back then, and of course, they were signed by the late great Sylvia Robinson from the Sugar Hill Gang Records company. Of course, Angie Stone moved on to another group called Vertical Hold. I remember this song being hot in 1993, and let me find it real quick. It was called "Seems You're Much Too Busy" in 1993, which that single really did well in the charts before it got disbanded in 1995. Before she left in 1995 to pursue a solo career. Of course, her 3 albums in the early 2000s, transitioning to J Records, which was owned by Clive Davis. Mahogany Soul in 2001, in which spawned 2 singles, Wish I Didn't Miss You, and it was followed by Stone Love in 2004 and An Art of Love and War in 2007. Her first #1 album on the U.S. Billboard Top R&B Hip Hop Albums chart.
Yeah, it was one of those those songs where you didn't know the artist, but you knew the song because it was like I think it went to like the top 10 in the pop charts as well. So yeah, that was another one. And it's only and if you guys don't remember, it's like I said, and that second hit that you talked about, Sid. That sampling was from Backstabbers. If you guys remember,
the OJs, yes,
the OJs. That was she sampled that song that ended up being one of her biggest hits. Go figure with that one. So of course, she was nominated for 3 Grammys. Best R&B performance for U-Haul, another one of those songs. Very underrated songs there. Mahogany Soul. We talked about that. Their second album, the Wish I Didn't Miss You. They played that song on loop. Basically most of this weekend. So yeah, I mean, just a tragic. I know her son that she had with D'Angelo, of course, who she worked with. I know he works in the music industry. I think he's a producer. So yeah, so I know he and his sister, of course, who broke the news, and just tragic because she was, like I said, she just finished playing a concert in Birmingham, just hours before she died. So that's just crazy how life works, but. Yeah, our thoughts go out to them and to everybody, to all her fans. She will be missed, and probably one of the most underrated singer-songwriters in music.
And real quick, she ventured into acting, making her film debut in the 2002 comedy film, The Hot Chick. Of course, she was in a Broadway musical, Chicago, and she was on VH1's Celebrity Fit Club, TV1's R&B Divas, which I remember very well, and the movies such as Defying Temptations with Montel Jordan and Beyonce 2003, Pastor Brown in 2009, and Schoolgirls in 2010. Of course, this I didn't know. We'll do. I was thinking about doing the show today, but we'll do it down the road. She did the TV theme song to the UPN hit show Girlfriends.
Yep, she did. So little known fact about that. I know they were playing that song, that theme song too. So yeah, so we'll do that show at some point. But yeah, speaking of old school, as the Second City Sports on Sports with Lakina McGee, Steve Brown with you. As we go into Old School TV Monday, the show we are going to do today is the la la la. I'm not going to even try to sing that, but the theme song. But
Jesus, Small Wonder.
Yes, Small Wonder, the hit syndicated series, which aired from 1985 to 1989. It was about a suburban family. They're a robot that Ted Lasso, of course, who's a robotics engineer, created a robot named Vicky, a robot child that was very, very similar, very human. She talked like a robot, but she had the emotions of a human being. It aired, like I said, aired from 1985 1989. It aired in syndication. So here in Chicago, I think it aired. I think I had well, depends. I guess it depends like the season. I guess I think like 1:00. So I was like at 2:00 on WFLD.
Yep.
Which of course, before it became like Fox Chicago 32.
Yes.
But yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Good. Yeah. What a time, right? So what a time.
Right before Bulls basketball back in '87.
Yes. It sure did. Yes. Small Wonder coming up next here on the WFLB TV.
Right after Give Me a Break's last couple seasons on the air.
Yeah, exactly. You're on syndication. Yep. So, you could say it was a bizarre concept, like you said. This was sort of like before the 21st century. You had a house, you had a housewife, you had a kid. The parents wanted another kid, so they created robots with feelings, and hilarity ensued. So they had a nosy neighbor. Yeah, a nosy neighbor. Of course, she ended up going to Vicky. Of course, she ended up going to regular school, and everyone was curious as to the super smart girl, but she talked like a robot, but nobody knew it was a robot and all that stuff. And like I said, all kinds of shenanigans happen. And it's one of those shows, Sid, where you didn't want to admit at the time that you liked it, but you did, but then you didn't. And then it was just, it's sort of like one of those shows where you just kind of like, you don't want to admit you liked it, but you did. So that's just kind of how it was back then. So welcome to the mid 80s, kids.
Yeah, and that's what people don't give it credit for this, even though it was in syndication at the time. It was one of those first shows that made Fox a big time network because it was produced by Fox, of course. They had all the other shows that came along later with Marry Your Children, 21 Jump Street, Parker Lewis, in Living Color, Martin, and all those other shows going into the 90s. But like you said, it aired right in the middle of Saturday afternoons on the old channel 32 here in Chicago, WFLD. That following Mr. Belvedere, I think it was. No, not Mr. Belvedere. Yeah, it didn't come up to the 90s. But Give Me a Break in syndication those last couple years. And then occasionally when the Bulls were playing on the road, they were the over-the-air flash station for you younger folks out there on the old WFLD 32. Johnny Ware Kerr and Jim Durham doing those road games back then. Oh, those were good times. And yeah, but back to the show. But the show dealt with some issues. They really didn't beat you over the head with it. They kept it light. And like I said, they made Vicky human. I liked Harriet. She was the nosy neighbor. I didn't like the parents too much. They were actually annoying, like Harriet, but Harriet was actually funny. And like you said, Vicky really stole the show. I know that the one that played Jamie, he got into some trouble, unfortunately, when he grew up. But I think everything's all right with him now. Of course, Tiffany Brissett, that who played Vanessa, she's a nurse now in Boulder, Colorado. So glad that she's doing well. So like you said, that show was entertaining for what it was. It was a nice, wholesome family show. It was actually, like you said, it was right before its time as far as being a sci-fi comedy show. And like you said, it opened up avenues to what we see now on streaming, on television, and on streaming. So could that show work today? I think it could with the technology that we have now, but things back then wasn't as advanced like we have it now.
Yeah, and a little known fact about Vicky, she did before she became real famous, but she actually also was a finalist with Tiffany for the role of Vicky. Can you guess who it is? I'll give you a hint. It's a show that we have not done for Old School TV Monday yet.
Well, that's a lot of them, but I'm not going to use Google. So for the sake of time, I don't know. You give us the answer.
It was Miss Candace Cameron. She actually.
Oh, okay, Full House. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. She actually admitted this, right before of course, the spinoff series Fuller House. She admitted that it was between her and Tiffany for that role, and of course, she ended up getting it. Of course, she did. She ended up doing okay for herself. Of course, she got Full House a couple of years later. But yeah, because she actually said she was actually felt good that she did not get that role because of course Tiffany unfortunately suffered typecasting, so it actually ended up going better for her. Like I said, they did deal with issues, of course. Like I said, they didn't beat you over the head with it. They dealt with smoking, they dealt with drugs, but they did in a funny way. Probably one of my favorite episodes was when they did custodial. They did custodial like kidnapping because because it was just starting to become illegal. Because if you remember back in the early 80s, it was happening a lot, but there were no repercussions. as it got to the mid 80s, of course, it started, it became a federal law that if you don't have, if you're a parent, you don't have primary custody or any custody of the kid, if you kidnap them, that's a felony. So that was probably one of my favorite episodes that the young lady, of course, Jamie, and of course, Reggie. Reggie was one of my favorite supporting characters.
That's right. Yeah. With that big old Reggie curly hair.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to him, but yeah, he was a great character, and of course, Jamie, but he and Jamie were really good friends. But yeah, that was one of my favorite episodes. And little known fact, one of the guest stars in that last season, Lark Voorhees, if you guys remember that last season.
That's right. Yep. Before Lisa Turtle. That's right.
Yep. It was right before. Yeah, it was right before she got. Of course, she auditioned for Lisa Turtle. Yeah, she was on a couple episodes in the last season. And Dick Christie, I did not know this, being a soap opera watcher. He's been on Bold and the Beautiful for the last 20 years, getting a nice little steady check. Of course, he's done also a lot of voiceover as well. So good for him. I know Marla Pennington. I know she retired from acting after that, but she's a grandmother now, so it's good that she actually still looks pretty good too. I think she just turned 70 last fall, so everyone's doing well for the most part. So like I said, again, Small Wonder I think could work now with the technology, but yeah, good old AI might have a lot to do with that too. They used AI before AI became a thing.
Like I said, it probably could work better now than it did back then, but back then we didn't know any better, and like I said, technology was in its early stages of what we have now. So, but like I said, it's one of those shows that you could watch in the middle of a Saturday afternoon and get a little chuckle out of it. Even though the critics slammed it, people loved it. It stayed on for 4 years.
And most, if not all, those episodes are on YouTube. So if
yes.
you want to bring back some memories, you guys can watch Small Wonder right there on YouTube.
All right. For Old School TV Monday, we salute the 1980 syndicated television program Small Wonder. Lakina, close us out.
You can follow Mike Keenan McGee on the Twitter, X, Screen, and IG.
You can follow your Shirley Sydney Brown on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80. Excuse me. Be sure to download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Please subscribe to our podcast. We are located at War Media Podcast. That's WARR Media. PODCASTS. We are on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. While you're at it, please give War Media a follow at WARR Media on all social media platforms. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Be sure to catch Second City Sports live in living color every Monday, every Friday from 12:15 to 2:15 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on Sports Zone Chicago. One more again, as the kids would say. Be sure to catch Second City Sports live in living color every Monday, every Friday from 12:15 to 2:15 Central Standard Time, right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
And of course, right on the Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook and YouTube channels, you can catch replays of our show, Sean and Maya, the Smoke Fellas, and so much more. You can catch Sports Zone Chicago's replays of our great content right there. It's available for you anytime, anywhere, right there on Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook and YouTube channels.
And you know we will provide.
All right, so watch baseball. We'll keep if any other big trade news comes down the pike, we'll talk about that as well. Enjoy the college of hoops, with all the conference tournaments about to start as some of the bigger conferences are finished up their regular seasons, and so much more. For Sid, I'm Lakeem. This has been Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago, and we'll see you guys on Friday.
Holla!